All right. Well, welcome to the Real Estate and Business panel here at the Queen's Business Expo, where business truly meets empowerment. Today, you'll hear insights not just about property or profit, but about strategy, access, and leadership. Each of our panelists will share their perspective, followed by a question for me and a time for you, the audience, to ask some questions and things, okay? All right, so first, I'd like to introduce Patricia Wingo Boltree and give her a round of Luxury Southern California Properties. Patricia, welcome. All right, next we have Steve Matley with Coast to Coast Equities Incorporated. Thank you. Woo! All righty, and then next is Dr. Abena Bradford, CEO of the Bradford Mortgage and Realty. Thank you. And our last panelist, Alan Shimamoto with Accelerate Growth Coaching. Wonderful. Thank you for the warm welcome. Yes, welcome. All right, so panelists, I'd like to start with Patricia. Patricia brings a unique advantage to real estate through her background in finance, lending, and investment strategy. As a co-founder of her finance company, she helped grow the business from a small startup into a national operation, gaining deep experience in capital negotiations and complex transactions. In real estate, Patricia earned Coldwell Banker Sterling Award, placing in the top 16% worldwide. She works across residential, commercial, and investment properties and is known for her level-headed strategic approach. Patricia believes in the best real estate comes from clarity, trust, and customized strategies. She's also our realtor. She's helped us with 2 homes. So I want to invite you to share, Patricia, and just take 5 minutes and share more about your business, what you're seeing in the market right now, okay, and what you believe matters most for buyers and sellers today.
All right, thanks, Louisa. Wow, 5 minutes to talk. So in my industry, I'm kind of built myself to be a better listener than talker because I want to hear what people are actually looking for. Our industry has changed a lot in the last few years. If you are aware of the national lawsuits that have created a lot more clarity in the buyer and seller relationship, and I think it's a blessing. If you are going to go home shopping, you're going to be presented with a buyer-broker agreement with your agent, which prior to this, my broker always made me have anyways, because if you're shopping for a home and your agent says, it's okay, you don't pay my commission, the seller does, that's absolutely wrong. Your commission is built into the price of the home. And sellers were saying, well, why am I paying someone that I don't even know? Right? The buyer picked them, I didn't, why am I paying them? So that's why we got into the clarity around the with the lawsuits. So so now it's not like let's just go chase down homes. It's you have to have an actual structured relationship with your agent when you're home shopping. And that scares a lot of people off. I lead with that because I think if you're not going into what you're going to do with clarity, then you're definitely not going to get through the experience without a lot of hassles. So you need to be prepared, you need to understand what you're looking for, and you need to understand your markets, and you have to have a professional there because you are making one of the biggest investments that you are going to be making in your whole life. And I think everyone should own real estate. My motto is real estate's a girl's best friend. Diamonds are fine, but dirt's better. And that's from my own life experience. Growing up, my parents had a lot of financial instability, but the one thing that they had was their home. And the home I grew up in became the home that was sold to pay for my mother's retirement care as she moved into assisted living. So it's a part of a life plan. You can have your savings accounts and you can have your stocks and you can have all those things, but if the economy goes down and the stock market crashes, you still have your dirt. Dirt never goes away. It never goes to zero. Well, I suppose it possibly could if there was some kind of nuclear thing, but you get what I'm saying. It feels a lot more secure to me. And over the years, as I grew my finance company and we bought a lot of real estate, when I sold the finance company and I sold the office building, I had properties that as I pivoted through my life, if I took time off for my daughter's illness or when I had cancer or where I was starting a new business, I had the leverage of that property that I could sell or borrow against to keep my next chapter going without it being so difficult. How am I doing on my time?
You know,
Is anybody timing me?
you're fine, you're fine. I'm not sure. Time-wise, where are we at?
Okay. Anyways, so that's why it's a passion for me. I want to move people from being the renter that has the throwaway money into having something with some stability. Because my brother, he helps his kids buy homes because he feels that no matter what happens to them in their life, if they have their home that can't be taken away from them because they're making their mortgage, it's not like a rental situation, that they are going to be more emotionally and psychologically stable, and they'll just do better in their lives. And I agree with that. And I think that's what everybody should have. And as an investment strategy, real estate is a great equalizer. You don't have to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever to build your life with real estate. If you can figure out a strategy where you can get started and then you can start growing a real estate portfolio, no matter how small it is, even if it's just one home that you live in, you're still further ahead. People grow wealth through real estate. I think the stat is people who own their home have something like 400% more wealth than people that rent. And it just grows for you in your sleep. You could be paying the rent and building someone else's wealth, or you could be paying your mortgage and building your own. Historically, real estate in this county, it appreciates somewhere between 3 and 5% per year on average. COVID, 2020 through 2023, that was 40% in 2 years. I don't think we're going to see that again, and if you manage to own real estate during that time, that's just a huge life bonus. But buying real estate, even if no matter where you're starting, you're still going to start to have that appreciation as you're paying your mortgage down. And when you get a little bit older or you want to do other things with your life, that becomes your equity and your wealth. That's why I do it. And like I say, it's open to everybody.
Perfect.
So.
All right. Is this one on? There we go. When someone is thinking about buying or selling real estate, what should they be paying attention to that most people completely overlook?
Preparation. They think it's so hard to fill out that mortgage app, or they think it's too premature to do their own home inspection before they list their home. So when you're selling a home, I have 3 Ps: preparation, pricing, and positioning. And that's what you get from working with a real estate professional. You have to be prepared so that you understand everything about your home, because nobody likes those surprises during escrow, right? Which all of a sudden you have to drop your price 40 grand because your roof is bad. If you'd known that in advance, you would have been priced properly, and there'd be a lot less emotions around that discovery. Positioning is really important. Your real estate professional should be checking the market around your home constantly, seeing what other homes are doing. I personally had a home that I had on the market, and a neighbor just inherited it and bailed out at a really low number, and that affected our entire neighborhood. And it happens, and you have to make a decision, and you need to know so you're not wasting time on the market, right? Your pricing is really important. A lot of people think their home is worth up here, and you can sit there and wait for that number, but at 3% a year, you might be sitting on the market a couple of years to get a true understanding, and not using the Zillow algorithm. The Zillow algorithm doesn't walk through your home. It doesn't see the extra things that you've done or repairs that are needed. So it's really just a very general estimate, but they like to pull you in with that, going, sell your home. We think it's worth this. It's not a super realistic number, and I've seen it fluctuate a lot. So you have to have your preparation, your pricing, and your positioning down and monitored regularly. Now, if you're going to buy a home, again, it's preparation. Filling out a mortgage app with a lender, there's lenders here, is not very painful. It's really not. But you need to know in advance what you can afford, so you don't go look at something and go, oh, I love this. And it turns out you can't afford it, right?
Okay.
Or you could have afforded more.
Perfect. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to open it up to the audience. And who here has a question for Patricia? Yes.
Hi, I'm Dr. Brenda Miller. I teach at Cal State San Marcos University as senior nursing students. And I have a senior nursing student who graduated from my class. in the audience today. But my question is, and I was told from my grandfather years ago, never, ever, ever take a second out on your home. What do you think about that? Now the time's
So the question is,
30 years ago.
is it best to take a second out of your home? Is that something we should or shouldn't do? Okay.
Well, the answer to that is depends. What are you going to do with it? And how much equity do you have? Most lenders don't want you to be below 80% loan to value, right? And if you have extra money and you could take it out at a decent interest rate to, say, buy another property that creates income for you, or help a family member buy a home, those would be decent reasons to do it. People do it to consolidate debt. It really depends on your financial picture and what that does for the future appreciation of your home. It's really a personal decision. I've seen people take the money out and then not use it properly, and now they owe way too much, and then when they do go to sell, they don't have enough equity left to even pay their realtors, et cetera. You really have to know your long-term plan to decide if it's the right thing for you. And if we want to talk about it later, we certainly can. You know, it's a great way to get...
Oh.
It's a great way to get low interest money, because interest rates right now on credit cards, et cetera, is really high. But again, you know, you're kind of borrowing from your property's future if you're going to need to sell before that second is paid off.
Perfect. All right. Was there anyone else that had a question? Yes.
To ask, what advice would you give someone who is young and is looking at buying their first home now?
Oh, there we go.
Do it. Do it. The sooner you start, the sooner you're building equity, right? The sooner the better.
Sooner the better. I love it. Let's give her a hand. I love it. All right. Thank you so much, Patricia. Next, we have Steve Matley with Coast to Coast Equity. Steve has over 30 years' experience of leadership in real estate development, construction management, academia, and nonprofit organizations have completed over $1.5 billion of land entitlement. Woo! Developed and construction products, including housing, infrastructure. My goodness. And let's see here. High-rise, schools, public projects. Steve is published author and speaker for seminars, conferences, academic lectures, and symposiums. He has both hosted and been a great guest on multiple radio and television shows discussing real estate, investing, business, and leadership. Woo! Let's give him a round of applause there. All right, Steve, you've led over $1.5 billion in real estate and construction projects from your experience. What is the one leadership of planning mistake you see most often that details projects? And what is the smarter approach leaders should be taking today?
Well, first thing is that if you're going to get into real estate investing, development, construction, any of those type of things, it's a team sport. I know it's very entrepreneurial, and it's for the fiercely independent, you know, I'm going to do my own thing, but it's a team sport. You have to work with other people. I always tell people, if you want to do things strictly by yourself, take up pottery. If you want to do this business, learn to work with people. You don't have to like them. You don't have to invite them over for Thanksgiving dinner. You need to get along with them, be professional with them, and you really have to appreciate they come from a different place than you. They're different disciplines. Architects, contractors, engineers, real estate agents, funding people, title, all these are not just different mindsets, they all come from different planets. And you have to figure out what is they bringing to the table, because you don't know everything. So humility is a big issue. Understanding that just because this worked on another project doesn't mean it'll work on this one, and maybe somebody around that table knows something you don't and has an insight. Other times you have to help someone else not try to go down a path where they think they know everything. So that's the big thing, is be humble, listen, as you said, listen is number one. Be open to new ideas, and then don't just take those, vet those ideas. And if you can work together, so I looked at this whole project, what I do, I'm an orchestra leader. I don't write or compose the music. That's engineers and architects, they do that. I don't play the instruments. Those are key consultants, those are trade contractors, those are suppliers that do that type of stuff. My job is to get all those experts, collect the experts together, trust them to do what they do. You got to check on them, but trust them, and then get them all to play together at the right time. And if you can do that, the end result is a beautiful thing, and everybody looks great at the end of it. And if you can't do that right, the whole thing's a mess. Now, in the entertainment business, they'll throw tomatoes at you, but in this business, they'll sue you. So it's really more important, okay?
I love that. That was wonderful. With your unique perspective across both industry and education, what is the one skill or mindset real estate and construction professionals must develop now to remain successful over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, the first thing I will say is, your first mindset is, you can take information in from a lot of places, don't believe a lot of it. If you are self-educating yourself on TikTok, I don't know about that. AI has been known to make mistakes, right? Why? Because what does AI do? AI goes into the internet and it collects all the stuff that's out there. It doesn't know if it's good, bad. It doesn't know if it's right or wrong. It doesn't know if it's accurate or not. It just collects it, and the most common stuff is what it reports. It's the average of the average of the average of the average. And remember, nothing about it can look into the future. It can only collect what's there, which is always the past. Do we think things are going to change? Do we think things are moving forward? Well, actually, AI itself is going to make things change. Well, you know this, right? And everything always moves forward. At the same time, I'm going to parrot what you just said. The right time to get involved is now. As Will Rogers said over 100 years ago, if you know who Will Rogers is, he was an actor and a humorist and a columnist. He said, buy land, they ain't making any more of it. Okay, and so think about it. What if you'd have bought land in Southern California back in the 1920s? Where would you be, right? You don't have to Wilshire Boulevard. That'd be great, right? Also, in Southern California, San Diego, Orange County, Los Angeles, since the end of World War II, real estate has roughly doubled about every 15 years. It goes up and down in between, but if you look 15 years, so let's say you bought at mid-2006, height of the market, and then boom, everything took a dump, right? And it's done. And you figure, boy, did I make a bad mistake. And you're suffering through 2007 and 8 and 9. What is that land worth now? If you bought something at the height of the market in 2006, has it appreciated? Double or triple maybe, right here in San Diego?
Yeah.
So it's not a bad buy if you just camp on it long enough. The low is going to be twice what the last low was. The high will be twice what the last high was. So now is always the time to buy. Don't try to time the market. This isn't day trading. Okay, this is real estate. And the third thing you look at is when you get into this business, if you want to invest in this, understand it's illiquid, it is long term, your money may be locked up for a while, you don't control all the timing, and it may devalue a little at first, but you have to be able to weather that storm. So when you get into this business, make sure you have the resources to do it. Don't use your mortgage money, don't use your grocery money, don't use your kids' college fund, money that you've set aside for investing. And how do you get that money? Diligently put away, $50 per paycheck if you're on a W-2 job. Even that will start building up if you are diligent about it and get something where now you have something to work with. If you can use other people's money, that's a great way to go. If you don't know how to do that, here comes a shameless plug. There's a book on that back table that I wrote on how to do syndications. That's how you use other people's money. And it'll walk you through that. So put a plan of action together, get out there, start doing it, and your mindset has to be, I need to work with other people. I know that there's risk in this. I am taking on the risk I'm comfortable with, and I'm not unduly risking other people's money. And then the knowledge piece is, I can't know everything at once, but I can partner with people that do. So be open to partnering with people that don't know what you do, because your biggest risk is lack of information.
Thank you, Steve. That's wonderful. Powerful insights, right? I want to take it to you, the audience. Do you have any questions for Steve about real estate, development, construction, management? Yes.
So if we were considering purchasing a property, a home, and we wanted to use it for purposes of having renters, that kind of thing, in California, how is that? Is it landlord friendly? Or is it renter friendly? Or what are your perspectives on that?
Okay, so here in the People's Republic of California, that tells you right there where I'm going with this. Are there any landlords here that have rentals? Do your tenants have more rights than you do on your own property? Absolutely. We have squatters' rights, right? They have rights over everything. So you have to take that into consideration. Now, how do you get around that? Well, you could have rentals out of state. I know a lot of people doing that, but now you got the problem of I don't have feet on the ground and eyes and ears in the other state unless I really know a property manager who I trust. And I've known people that got burned going out of state for that reason. Not that their deal was a good deal, but they had unscrupulous contractors, property managers, real estate agents that basically, since no one was watching the chicken coop, they let everything go, right? So you got to be careful of that. Here in California, I would say if you want to get on the upside of rental and you don't want the landlord headaches, and even anywhere you go, there's landlord headaches, right? They call it termites, tenants, trash, and toilets, right? So there's that, but here there's even more so because there's lawsuits and there's squatters and all this kind of stuff. You can invest in REITs. REITs are real estate investment trusts. They don't return as much as doing your own probably, but you're getting appreciation and cash flow by being almost like a mutual fund of people invested in real estate and someone else is doing all the headaches. It's a write a check, get a check kind of a deal, so it's truly passive. So that's one way to mitigate that, and you have to look at what's your risk tolerance. I always tell people, do not ever get into anything where as long as that money's out, you're not sleeping. There is no return worth that. Your peace of mind is worth a lot more than that. So I'd rather get an 8% return on something that makes me sleep than a 45% return on something that just eats my stomach up every day, right? So I guess that's not really an answer, but I would say here in California, to answer your question, it is not landlord friendly. It's very tenant friendly and getting more so every single day.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Give them a round of applause. Woo! That was wonderful. Thank you so much. Excellent. Panelist number 3. Okay, number 3. Dr. Abena Bradford, known as Doc A, is the president and CEO of Bradford Mortgage Exchange and Realty with decades. Where do you want me to go? Okay, with decades of experience in residential mortgage, lending, and commercial real estate. She is especially passionate about helping first-time home buyers and believes home ownership is the key to building generational wealth and stronger communities. Her passion for economic development extends beyond lending through her community leadership. Dr. A, I'd love for you to share more about your work in lending and community development and what people should understand about, okay, as far as home ownership today.
Okay, thank you for that. And Marie, thank you for the opportunity for me to serve on the panel. Before I get started, I always like to take a survey of the room to see who's in the room. How many people own property? Raise your hand. That's a greater percentage than I thought. Okay, next, how many people work with folks who want to own a property? Okay. Owning real estate, the reason I do a lot of work in economic development is because I flow my residential mortgage lending, flow all of my commercial real estate, and everything. I will ditto what my 2 previous speakers have said. All of that's related to economic development when you're building a community. And when you're building a community, one of the big things is having access and knowing how to access the resources that's going to build a community. So one of the things that I do through my mortgage lending, in addition to all the other things that I do, is I create what I call a flow-based economic development system. And I analyze the systems that people are striving to enter. You want to get into a mortgage. Example of how I would consider that a flow-based system. So you're a person who wants to get a mortgage, so I have to look and analyze all of the factors that would make you successful in closing your loan. Then I have to look at the multi-million products on the market to see which one best fits the need to, and then I match you up and make sure, and I take you through that system, and at the point of flow, you are successfully closing on your home. Economic development is important. I have done and created homeowners that I'm always very proud of. I do a lot of first-time home buyer loans, which are some of the hardest loans to do because of all the requirements and the balancing act you have to do between the person purchasing the home and to make sure that you can get them through all the requirements for the lenders who are offering the products. That you take about 3 or 4 different layers and levels to get them into the home, and people generally do not want to disclose all the information, but you have to be able to work with them and make them understand if we're going to be successful, we have to go through these phases. Economic development builds communities. Home ownership is the base for that. You have your wealth. Owning a home is the beginning of building wealth for some who doesn't have it. We have so many mortgage products on the market. If you're an investor, they've created some very creative products for you now to help you to own property. So you can form partnerships, you can form teams, you can do it individually, and purchase some property that you can begin to build wealth. If you have a home, if you want to do a home equity line of credit, there are so many different ways you can use your home and the equity that you build in your home. If you're paying rent, when I used to do my home buying classes, I used to always tell my students, I said, okay, I'm going to draw 2 trash cans yeah. So I said, in one trash can, that's where you pay rent. I said, but then over here, if you're paying a mortgage, are you throwing your money in the trash or are you building something? Because see, at the end of the day, when you pay your rent, and if you're 30 days late, you're gone, and you may have lived there for 5 years and you have nothing. But every time you pay your mortgage, you're paying yourself because you're reducing the debt on the property, and means you're building equity on your home in addition to what it's gaining on the market. And so when you look at it that way, sometimes you have to really sit down and think about, oh my gosh, I have to do all of these things to access this program or product, and I really don't want to do it. I've had situations where, and this is a little down in the weeds, but just quickly, I had a little situation where I had somebody, they were trying to borrow $500,000. It doesn't sound like a lot in California, but that is $500,000, okay? And the lender wanted 3 months bank statements. And so they decided to give me 2 pages of each bank statement. And I'm like, no, I need all of your pages. And they were like, well, I don't think they need that. I said, well, I don't think you're going to get $500,000. And there's situations like that where so when you are in a mortgage lender and when you're in that field, you are a counselor, you're a financial advisor, you are a lawyer, but not giving legal advice, but moral advice. You are a psychologist, you are a referee. Trust me, you're a referee. I had a situation where I had a couple approved to purchase their home, and I had to take the application from the wife and the husband separately because they could not get there together. So they were doing fine, but when the husband's credit report came up, he had some debt on there that the wife was not aware of. So I called him in, and because everything is confidential, I could not disclose to his wife in his presence what that was. That was something he had to do, but he had to clear it up for me. At the end of the day, he had a mistress that he was doing some things for, and it was reflected on the credit report that was preventing them from getting their loan.
Oh,
So I'm saying you're a marriage counselor, a financial advisor, and many other things.
oh my goodness. Well, there are so many different loan programs available, and I know you've mentioned a few of them, but if you can share some of that, but also what are creative and maybe lesser known loan options, okay, that would help people buy or invest that thought it might be impossible?
Okay, so in purchasing a home, retaining a home, and building your wealth, we have so many different programs. One of the programs that's not used a lot, you can purchase homes that may need a lot of work and you can buy them for less money. Well, we have a lot of renovation loans that you can use. FHA, 3.5% down, you're going to buy a house for $500,000 and it needs $100,000 worth of work. You can do that all as a single loan. and you have the money to renovate your home, and it's almost like getting a brand new home, and you have a property now that's building equity, and you don't have an outrageous mortgage payment. That's one thing that a lot of people are not aware of, how to use that. And mostly when you do FHA and VA, those renovation loans are only for properties that you're going to live in. However, we call Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They also have renovation loans that you can do for investment properties, and you can also do for second homes, like your vacation homes. And I know this is a taboo loan for some, and it really shouldn't be, because it helps you to retain your wealth. If you have a senior citizen, you have reverse mortgages to help them to hold on to their homes. A reverse mortgage is nothing but a mortgage. If you had a mortgage on your home and you had to close and something happened, you still got to pay it off. You keep your property, and the same thing happens in a reverse mortgage, but a lot of people do not understand the dynamics of a reverse mortgage. And so as a result, they run from it when it really helps you to maintain or improve the quality of your life, hold on to your property so that you can pass your wealth down to your heirs. And then you have a lot of, like in San Diego County, oh my gosh, I do so many of these home buying loans where they'll give you 20% of the down payment. What does that do? That gives you a lower payment, no what we call mortgage insurance, and it keeps your payments low. California Housing Finance Agency has multiple loans. I'm not a fan of theirs because I think their fees are high, but it's still a good loan for some who may need it. And then, of course, Fannie and Freddie, they have the low 3% downs. You have your normal FHA, VA. And there's a lot of people coming up with a lot of loans. But I tell you, you still have to weigh to see, and you remember I was telling you about that flow, where you are and what that program is offering, and having to make sure that that's the best program for you, not just for qualifying, but for building your equity and not getting hit with a lot of fees. That takes away from the benefit of having those down payment assistance loans, and that there's no crime in getting that. The money is out there, and people need to use it so that they don't go away.
Thank you, Dr. A. I'd like to open it we have time for one question, okay? Who has a question about financing for the home? Yes.
If you want to construct a home instead of renovate one or buy one that's already built.
Well, yeah, I do a lot of construction perm loans. They have construction loans, and then they have construction perm loans. Now, when you do those type of loans, you're not going to take advantage of the low down payment. Most times you'll need about 15 or 20% down. They do have some construction perm loans that will allow you to put 10 or 15% down, but the criteria is really high for that. And again, I would take you through the flow and see what you have versus what the programs offer and come up with the best fit that would make you successful in doing that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Just give her a round of applause there. Excellent. And now I'd like to introduce Alan Shimamoto. He's a strategic business growth and leadership coach. Alan is not only a leadership coach who helps business owners, but also CEOs scale their companies without losing themselves in the process. With more than 37 years of experience, Alan has built and scaled multiple service-based organizations, including leading multi-million-dollar operations across multiple states. Today, Alan partners with business owners that help them transition from operator to CEO throughout mindset, strategy, and execution. Alan, I'd love for you to close us out, okay, with this panel by sharing what business owners should be focusing on right now to grow with intention and confidence.
That's a great question. Before we do that, I want to give a big shout out to Patty. She's our real estate agent. If you need one, this gal goes like the extra mile. Like open houses, I mean, whatever it is. And not only that, she's very knowledgeable on all aspects of real estate. Highly recommend if you're looking for a real estate agent for Patty. So yeah. Part of why I want to encourage you is because, he mentioned, even if you have to start with $50 out of a paycheck, the key to building wealth, real estate is a big part of it. If you look at, it's like 70% of all millionaires real estate's a part of their portfolio, something like that, right? So just start. I know for Louisa and I, that's how we built our wealth, is through real estate, starting with one small property and then just adding and getting bigger and so on, and then adding other homes. So, yeah. But before I dive into that question, I want to just share, how many of us realize that our time here on earth is limited? Right? We all have a limited time on earth, right? Mine might be more limited than yours. Okay, and I'm going to share this because we had a 2-day mastermind on November 13th and 14th, and that night on the 14th, I wasn't feeling so good. The 15th, I ended up going to the hospital. Louisa's like, my pain level was about an 8, and on a scale of 1 to 10, go to the hospital. Come to find out later that day that I was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic colon cancer, and I have like 10 plus tumors running around in my liver and a few other spots in my body. And that's not the best news that you want to hear. Like, it was a shock. But the interesting thing that has kept me going through this, you guys, is just a mindset, right? That we came home from the hospital after 10 days, and the first thing I do is I get on a Zoom call with a coaching client, an HVAC company, their leadership team. They have a group of 10. It's a 2-hour Zoom call. My wife looks at me and says, "What are you doing? You need to rest, and you need to take it easy." I'm like, I'm not going to mope. I'm not sitting around doing that. And I got on the Zoom call, and interesting thing is, a lot of people want to feel sorry for me, and that's great. But I'm not going to feel sorry for myself, right? At the end of the day. And so I share that with you because all of us go through some kind of challenge. There's a challenge, I'm sure, that you're facing right here, right now, right? Every one of us has one. Some of us have some super big ones that potentially could threaten our will to move forward, right? I just want to share with you guys, you can do it. Just come up with and decide that, you know what, I'm not going to be the victim. And here's why I am the way I am. So my dad was interned during World War II, one of 110,000 Japanese Americans put in a camp here in California. And after 2 years, he ended up signing up for the U.S. Army. So here's his own country putting him in camp. 2 years later, he signs up for the Army. He serves 23 years. His last tour took him to Japan. He met my mom. They got married. 10 years later, they realized they couldn't have kids. So they walk into a Japanese orphanage and pick me out of there. Yeah, I'm like 8 months old. I literally fit in the crook of my dad's arm. And he's like, "You're the one," right? But here's the interesting thing, you guys. Had my dad been the victim instead of the victor, had he been bitter instead of better, he would not have signed up for the Army. And I wouldn't be here talking to you guys, right, when you think about it. And so that was an example that my dad passed on to me over the years. I mean, he drilled that. "Alan, it's all between your ears. It's all between your ears. It's mindset." And so I share that with you guys because that's really life. All the strategies are great, but if you don't have the right mindset to go after it, you're not going to take advantage of it. Does that make sense? Right? So that's my encouragement to you guys today. Just decide you can do it. If you would have met me 38 years ago when I first started my business, you would have met this young 24-year-old who would be afraid to get in front of a group and talk and, real shy in that. But you know what? Anyone can learn, and so yeah. So in answer to your question, Louisa, I think the biggest thing is, one other thing. So my dad used to have his term. He called it gambaru. So in Japanese, gambaru means get over it. Get over it. Move on. And so that's, so the other thing to remember too, you guys, is adversity is opportunity. You're going to face it, but the higher you go, those that accumulate lots of real estate, right? They're facing adversity too at a different level. But the higher you go, the more adversity you face. But whenever adversity comes at me, I look at it and go, okay, bring it on. Just like I'm facing my cancer journey, bring it on. It's okay. It is what it is. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. All right, so I would say take care of the big rocks, right? So in today's uncertain economy, what should we focus on? The big rocks. And the number one big rock? Self-care. Self-care. We tend to put that off, right? In the busyness of life, building a business, we kick the can down the road on that kind of thing. I'm going to tell you that, when I was told, hey, because I asked the doctor, hey, what's the prognosis and what can I expect? He said, Alan, people in your situation, 2% live past a year. I'm like, okay, that's what I got. But you know what? My time, whether it's a year, 2 years, I plan on living far longer than that. But if that's the case, guess what? I got to take care of me, and I got to take care of my family, and that's a big rock. Because if I don't do that, then nothing else matters, right? Right? Same thing with your health. Nothing else matters. So I would say, and too often we say to ourselves, oh, we don't have time. I don't have time. Guess what? That's a mindset. If you tell yourself you don't have time, guess what you're not going to have? No time. So tell yourself, I'm a master of my time. I conquer time, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. And you will. You'll create a strategy to overcome that. And you make the big rocks the big rocks. So for instance, Louisa and I, we take a vacation each December for a couple of weeks. And that has been a part of our strategy for the 30 years we've been married, 31 years. We've been married for 31 years. We've worked together for 31 years. That does not change. Because if we push that aside, what fills in if we decide not to go on that vacation for a couple of weeks? The sands of life fill in around that big rock that just becomes missing, right? So make your big rocks, whether it's working out, your nutrition, setting money aside for real estate. If people say, well, Alan, I'll do it when I have the money. Like for coaching, I hear that all the time. Well, Alan, if I got the money, I would do it. Well, guess what? It's a mindset. You either make it a priority or kick the can down the road and it never will happen. Same thing with investing in real estate. If you decide that real estate is something you want, then start setting money aside, because waiting until later when you have more money, it's not going to happen. Other things get in the way, if that makes sense, right? So big rocks, take care of those. That answer your question, honey?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
cool.
Okay. What's the biggest shift business owners need to make to move from working in their business to truly leading it?
That's a great question. So most people get into business because they're good at how many business owners are in the room? Raise your hand. So, lots of business. Okay. So most people get into business owners because they're passionate about something, they're good at something, fixing or building something, right? The thing is, to scale a business, it takes a different skill set, right? Becoming more of a leader versus the technician, becoming more of the CEO. And so the key to that is developing your people. Most business owners, their pride gets in the way. Well, I do it better than everyone else. I can't hand that off. Again, that's a mindset, okay? So flipping that script and trusting your people, and that's a totally different subject, but yeah, getting into develop, and it's the soft skills, honestly, guys. So teaching people how to do the work is one thing, but learning how to communicate, learning how to read people, learning to when you meet someone, meet them where they're at. What is their communication style? Too often we have ours and we're totally oblivious to what the person in front of us is. And some people, they want you to get to the point. And then you got someone that just talks on and on and on and on. Then there's other people that, that are really good at, they want to tell a story or something like that. And then you got that person that's really abrupt, right? And we can buck heads. But when you learn to meet with someone else where they're at in their communication style, you develop great rapport, and that's how you lead people, is through connecting like we do here, developing rapport, and then probably the biggest, so communication is a big one, and developing the soft skills of your people. Too often, business owners spend too much time working in the business and teaching people in the business, but don't spend any time investing in their people to grow them personally and professionally, okay? And I will tell you, that's how I got to meet Louisa, because I became a better person, and someone that would get into her radar. Had she met me like 5 years earlier, there's no way I would have gotten into her radar. You know what I mean? So, but developing those skills, and then learning to cast vision. Casting vision for your company, for your team, and for them. Because too often, a lot of times people don't know what their own vision is, and you might have to cast it for them. Most people see people for where they are instead of where they could be, if that makes sense. So.
Thank you, Alan. Yeah. Who has a question about leadership, mindset, or building your business and things for Alan? Anyone?
Yes.
When it comes to
I guess, scaling the 20-80 rule? What do you think of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so the old saying, right? 20% of your effort will generate 80% of your revenue, or 20% of your people will generate. So the key is to duplicate that 20%, right? And so you're constantly evaluating what that 20% is and taking the bottom and going, okay, let's get rid of that and let's maybe focus more on this. And then also, what can we add in that might be a part of our 20%, right? But yeah, and if you could take that 20% and duplicate it 5 times, you just know, five extra business. Absolutely. Yeah, just by doing that. So, great question.
We have time for one more.
How would you approaching people to bring the awareness that this body has to be priority to take care because this body supports me to live longer?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm a big believer in having a one-on-one conversation with people, and too often we don't do that. We only have employee reviews quarterly, annually, whatever, and to me that's too late. People don't care how much you know till they know how much you care, right? So having a one-on-one discussion, I would just ask, hey, what do you think you need to do to improve? And most of the time, they'll know the answer and they'll come out with that. And if, let's say, one of yours is self-care, you could say, hey, so if they don't answer the question the way you want, say, how do you feel like you do in that situation? On a scale of 1 to 10, would you say 10, self-care, top priority, you do it all the time, 1, you don't, 5, you're kind of hit or miss, and then they tell you, well, I'm a 3. Okay, what do you need to go from a 3 to like a 7 or an 8? Now they tell you the answer instead of you telling them. That make sense? There's one more question there.
I have a real estate question.
Yeah.
Years ago, people would say, don't pay off your off because you get that little write-off. It is a little write-off. Is that still the case? Is it good to pay it off or not?
I think going to Patty's, what she said, it depends. Like, I'm a big believer in if we don't have a mortgage, it's like a mindset relief, like no payments, right, that kind of thing. Other people might disagree, and
A little mortgage.
yeah. So our goals have always been to have no mortgage, personally. So.
But isn't it true you could borrow
Sure.
against your house?
Yeah, and we're doing that right now, actually.
You still borrow against it if there's no mortgage?
Sure. Yeah, you can get a second or whatever. I guess that's not a second anymore, but yeah. You bet.
All right, let's give Alan a hand. All right, well, what we've heard today is that opportunity still exists for those who stay informed, intentional, and willing to lead themselves through change, right? Step into it, change. Please join me in thanking our panelists for sharing their insight and expertise with you today. And again, you can see them after this as well. Thank you so much.